evening, USPCA members. We're back again, and it's Thursday night, and I'm really excited that tonight we're again talking about what you can do in your business. And Chef Monica Thomas, who has been an associate and a member longer than I was around, but was one of the very first members that I had the chance to connect with, and I consider her a good friend. We're both Husky lovers, which always helps, which makes a big difference. But you know, Chef Monica has done some wonderful things for members in the industry, particularly those who are coming in. You know, we talked last week about how do you morph your business, how do you change things around. But there's a lot of chefs who aren't ready for that yet. There's a lot of chefs who are right now looking at their core business and saying, what do I do? Where do I go? And that's where Monica brings tremendous amount of talent, time, and experience. She shares with all of our new members as part of our onboarding process, which is critical. And so I'm excited because tonight she's here to share this with you. And Monica, welcome. So excited you're here with us. We do have some questions for you, but we'll get to those at the end. From a housekeeping perspective, if you're on with us tonight, just simply slide down to the bottom of your screen. You'll see two things. One says chat, the other one says Q&A. Try and go to Q&A and we'll monitor. Monica's gonna talk, so she doesn't have to worry about questions. Off to the side, I'll be monitoring questions and we'll start peppering those. So we do have a few to get us started, but if you have questions as Monica's talking, please chat, Q&A, whichever you wanna do. Put them in there and we'll make sure Monica gets them. So Monica, at this point, I'm gonna kind of go off screen and it's all yours.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks so much. And thank you for doing these weekly or twice a week seminars for all of us, because we are all sort of in this new world together, and it's great to have the support from USPCA, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. What I wanted to talk about tonight was geared towards traditional personal chefs primarily, and those who are newer to the business, people who might have launched in the last year or two, we're still getting their footing in the business, and then have been faced with the COVID-19 situation, which has shut some of us down or sent us scrambling to work out of commercial spaces and deliver and face all the challenges of shopping. So for those, especially those who have more time on their hands now because they may not be cooking as often, I wanted to revisit your foundation, the foundation of your business. Many of us, when we started the business, were thrown right into it. I know I had 2 clients within a week of completing the Culinary Business Academy many years ago. And I was really just tossed into it and went from there. And for some of you that's happened, which is terrific, but maybe you didn't take the time to really solidify your foundation. So I wanted to talk about 4 or 5 different parts of your business and your business foundation. And the first is your systems, getting the systems that you're going to use daily in place now. So if you don't have a system yet, now's the time to spend a little bit of time thinking about it and getting them in place. For instance, cooking and shopping and menu planning, etc. Do you have a system for all of that? There are tools that we can use, such as QuickBooks, and perhaps you haven't invested the time in setting that up, and now you have a couple of weeks maybe on your calendar that don't have cooking dates. So maybe you can take some time to get that in place. Modern Meal, which is a tool for menu planning, for client organization. That is a wonderful tool that I have been using even since it was in beta testing. It does have a learning curve, as any program does, any computer program does. And there is, I believe, a 14-day free trial. If you've got 14 days on hand, now's the time to dig into it, to look at it, to go through each component and see what it can offer you. You know, one of the big advantages of Modern Meal, in my mind, is it generates shopping lists. And with the push of a button, you can have a shopping list for, 20 recipes that you've input into someone's service menu. So take some time to look at that. Has your questionnaire been sort of catch as catch can, your in-home questionnaire? Is it the time to clean it up? Look at it again, see if it has everything you need. I know my questionnaire came from USPCA originally, 16 years ago. It has evolved over those years. I still change it to this date. I'm always in there tweaking it, adding something, taking something off. So look at your questionnaire. Is it gathering the information that you truly need to get the information from the client so that you can plan a beautiful menu for them that fits all their needs as well as your needs. The second piece that you should be thinking about is, what are you offering? Your services. What were you offering before? Were you offering a traditional 5x4? Were you offering totally fresh serve where maybe you're only cooking 3 meals at each cook day? Were you offering add-ons? Were you doing breakfast, lunch, snacks that your clients could have, as well as the dinner menu that you were planning? So I would say now's the time to look at that. In the last 2 years, I have seen more requests from new clients that wanted just fresh serve. So I have cut down my offerings to be 3x4s and 4x4s. I no longer offer 5x4s to anyone. But having said that, those people that were getting fresh serve from me before I had to shut down the business because of COVID, now had nothing in their freezers. So when I start cooking again, I'm going to offer an add-on. Maybe I'll charge an extra $75 to do one freezable meal in their first 4 or 5 services so that I can have something in their freezer as a backup. If, God forbid, something should happen again where we had to suspend service for any length of time. It could be a little backup cushion because all my fresh serve clients were caught out. They didn't have the backup that my frozen clients had. So, so you may look at expanding services when you go forward post-COVID, or you may want to pull back and say, I really hate doing 5x4s. That 5th meal just wears me out. So from now on, I'm only offering 4x4s. Now's the time to make a shift if that feels right for you. So look at those services that you offer and figure out what you really want to offer going forward. Another system that you should make sure you have in place is, of course, your marketing. And it may sound counterintuitive that you should market during this time, especially if you have shut down your business, but it isn't really, because you need to stay in front of your clients so they remember you and so that you have an audience when we come back on the other side of all this in a month or so. So you still need to have a presence. If you've been posting on Facebook, on a business page, if you've been doing your Instagram, if you're on LinkedIn, continue your posting. It can have to do with what you're cooking at home right now. It could have to do with what you want to cook in the future. It can be whatever fits with your brand that you have established, and keep it up. It doesn't have to be on an hourly basis. It doesn't even have to be daily, but just stay in front of your clients and your potential clients while we're in this lull. You can even, scroll back through your camera roll on your phone and look for some great pictures from a year ago. What did you do for Passover a year ago? What did you do for Easter a year ago? Put those pictures out there and say, can't wait to be making these again. Or show what you're doing to have a virtual gathering with your loved ones during the holidays. If you write a newsletter, an e-newsletter that you send out, if you can write further ahead at this point, please take the time to do that. Typically, I'll sit down and do, 3 or 4 months at a time. I've been trying to write forward. It's a little bit harder in these days, but I am writing newsletters that would fit for September, October. Hopefully, we will be in a more normal world by then. If you write cooking tips or, packaging tips or how to peel an onion and chop it properly, go ahead and start gathering those. Those are very interesting now. You have a lot of eyes on Facebook these days because people are home more and are checking Facebook and Instagram a lot more than they were when they were off working. So, stay in front of your people and your future people while we're in this little bit of a lull. And if you, let's say you have been having help with that in terms of you've hired someone to do your social media for you, you may need to cut back on that budget for a little while and take some of that back over yourself. So just give that some thought. Part of your whole system should be how you're going to convert a sale. Are you successful when you get into the end negotiations with a client on closing that deal, when you have your in-home interview? And look at your whole process getting to that point. Have you had a disconnect there? Are you not retaining your clients? Is there an issue with you keeping your clients? Have you had a couple of cook days and then they fade away? Maybe now is the time to take a good look at your entire process from the first email you get as an inquiry to getting that first payment. Where are the gaps along the way? One good example I had from a friend was that let's say you were going to provide lemon chicken for a menu, and that's what you put on the menu, lemon chicken. And the client said they didn't like the lemon chicken, and you're like, well, can you tell me what was wrong with it? And they said, well, I thought the lemon chicken would be breaded and fried and would have fresh lemon juice squeezed over the top with a little bit of cream sauce. Well, that's not what you thought lemon chicken was. So maybe you need to go back and look at how you present your menus to make sure there is firm, good words describing each item that they're getting, so there isn't a disconnect between what you think you're providing and what they think they're getting, because that sometimes that gap, that disconnect between expectation of the client and what you're providing can be why you're not retaining someone. And again, through the whole sales process, before you even get to the point where you're providing a menu, is making sure that you've explained how this is going to work, what it's going to look like, what you're going to do, what they're going to do, and everybody's on the same page with that. And again, having said that, you might need to look at having service agreements for your regular clients, not just for parties. Because I know a lot of you don't have a service agreement for a regular client. And that can be where you'll run into trouble, because your definition of clear counters might be different from their definition of clear counters. For instance, I had a client early on who thought clear counters meant they shoved everything into the sink. And that's not what I was expecting. So again, to eliminate the expectation gap between you and the client is what you need to aim for with that piece of your system. And then the last topic that I was going to touch on was branding, which I know people have spoken and written volumes about. But just know that branding goes way beyond colors and fonts. Your branding is the core of you and your business and what you're going to offer to the world. So be firmer in your recognition of what your brand is and what your mission is, what you want to put out to the world. What is it that you are selling to people, and then how that needs to be presented, and it needs to be consistent and across all your platforms, all your social media. One day you can't be offering wild dinner parties with crazy themes, and that's what you're after. And then the next day it's something else, and the next day it's something else. You can have multiple offerings. They just need to have a consistency across your business, and to make sure that you are being consistent all the time in what it is you're offering. I'm going to glance at my notes to make sure I've not left anything out, and I want to leave lots of time. I see we've got some questions
A
going
few
down.
questions. I'll get them to you too, Monica.
Okay. Oh, a couple of things. I'm going to jump back to the services that you're offering because some things have come up recently about what else can I offer, especially now when we are at home and we want to hopefully keep some income going or at least stay in front of our clients. Maybe now's the time to offer that quick, what do you have in your pantry? I can give you a recipe for that. Or I'm in the process of going gluten-free and I don't know what to do with my kitchen. So that if you are an expert in a niche like that, you could offer that as an add-on service where you would go in and set up a gluten-free kitchen for someone, say, newly diagnosed that has to go totally gluten-free. You can be that expert for them and come in and not only look at what's in their pantry in terms of food items, but also equipment. And perhaps the toaster now has to go because the toaster has had gluten-based breads in it, and now it cannot be cleaned enough to be used for someone who is a celiac. So those kinds of services, look at your niche if you have a niche, and look at everything that you can offer others that might pay some money to have that done. That's an invaluable service, especially for someone who is just starting to go through that, or newly diagnosed diabetic and doesn't know where to begin. What can I have in my house anymore? How can I eat? So think about that. Pantry organization, setting up a pantry that could get you through 2 weeks of a pandemic when you're now locked down. You know, I can come in and stock your pantry so that you could make dinner for 14 days easily with what's just what's in your pantry. So keep thinking about add-ons for your services. I see questions popping up.
You ready?
Larry,
Ready for a couple here?
Yeah, why don't we take a few?
So kind of go into a couple combined ones here that I'll bring to the table first. This is easy. A couple of members were asking about looking for the questionnaire templates. And I was going to say, I know we have a series of templates, and I can have Vince certainly post them, post that link up on the Facebook group. And if anybody isn't on Facebook, shame on you. But if you're not, you can certainly send us a note at info@uspca.com, and Vince and I will both see that. But any suggestions for anybody else in terms of other sources?
Well, basically what I've told people to do is to take that questionnaire and start playing with it. Try it out on someone, a neighbor, a friend, virtually now, obviously, and go through it and then see what's missing. I know I have added things in the last year. I don't think vinegar is on there at all. And, I never thought to ask if someone disliked vinegar. But there are clearly many things that are not on that questionnaire. And for me, the more information I get, the better. I grouped mine ultimately, especially my vegetable section, by color, because I couldn't figure out a really good way. So I have a whole section on green vegetables, and I list them and ask the client, do you like, artichokes? Do you like asparagus, and so on, in the green vegetables. So I've done green, white, yellow, etc., orange. So that's one thing. I've also added an equipment section onto my questionnaire because I don't carry my equipment to the clients. I use all my clients' equipment. And so I have added sort of the basic, what I need to do a basic cook day. Do you have a 10-inch skillet with a lid? Does it have a metal handle or a plastic handle? That tells me whether or not it's going to go in the oven. Do you have sheet pans? You may have to call them cookie sheets for the client because that's what they've grown up calling them, with edges, meaning a baking sheet. Because I like the ones that don't go spring in the oven. I like the nice heavy ones. So I'm very specific about that. Do you have a stock pot with a lid? Do you have a steamer insert? So I have a whole list of sort of bigger equipment like that. Then electric equipment such as a Cuisinart. What size is it? Full size? Is it the baby one? Do you have a blender? What's the model? Is it a Vitamix or a Waring? Because that's going to tell me different things about how I'm going to cook. Do you have an immersion blender? So sort of the electronics. And then I have a section on small wares. Do you have a microplane? Do you have whisks? Are they metal or are they silicone? Do you have spatulas? Are they heat proof, etc.? So I have a whole section on my questionnaire on that kind of equipment, since I don't carry any of that with me. So I would say take the basic template that USPCA provides and then play with it, add to it. And again, run through it with somebody and see what's missing when you go to plan a menu.
So, and I think you answered the question. Another one was the questionnaire is for new clients and their needs and wants. And I think, yeah, that's what you're building on that. It's just not for new clients. Really, as you build your questionnaire and you learn, it becomes virtually any client over time, right?
Right. Because when I initially started, I started so many years ago, we all carried all our own equipment, and we even like took the trash out of their house and took it home with us. I mean, the crazy things that nobody does anymore. But I did transition, and at first I got rid of the heavy stuff, the skillets, the stock pots, the Cuisinarts, those kinds of things. And then I ultimately got rid of even my small wares. I carry my knives, I carry 3 towels, and I carry the groceries. That's pretty much it. I've transitioned most of my clients to have Pyrex containers in their house, so I don't even have to carry containers. So I carry as little as possible. The younger chefs who are feeling really fit and wonderful and they can carry all that, that's great, but it does wear and tear, does do some wear and tear to your body. And if I can make it into the house in 1 trip versus 3 or 4 trips, and again, on the going out, if I can make it out in 1 trip, I'm so much happier than if I have to go back and forth multiple times. It shortens your cook day a little bit.
Perfect. I think this is one that you and I have talked about in the past, but we hear it every now and then. Do you recommend putting pricing on a post? People often want to know the bottom line from the get-go.
Yes, and people have strong feelings in both ways for this. I have always put my starts at, begins at pricing on my website, because I don't want to waste time with tire kickers. I don't want somebody who thinks personal chef service is going to cost $100. I want them to self-select. So I feel strongly that way. But I do say begins at, because if they come to me and they've got a very complicated diet that I'm going to have to do more research for, do more planning, if the shopping's going to take me longer because I have to read every single label, or I have to go to 5 stores because of specialty items that I have to buy, I want to be able to charge more for that. So I believe my pricing on my website now begins at whatever for this size service. The other thing that I do now is 2 portions, 3 portions, or 4 portions all cost the same amount. I do not reduce my price if somebody wants a 3x2 versus a 3x4. And this is my reasoning behind it. Your planning is exactly the same amount of time. Your shopping is pretty much the exact amount of time. Maybe it takes you about 5 minutes per recipe less to cook 2 portions versus 4. Maybe not. It's almost the same. Maybe you'll use fewer containers, but that's about it. And my clients already have the containers, so that doesn't matter. So I've stopped reducing the price from if the service is a 4-portion service or a 2-portion service or a 3-portion service, it's all the same. I will charge more when you get into 5, 6 portions, because typically when you get to 5 or 6 portions, you're into a second skillet or a second pan to get all those portions made. So it does take slightly longer. So that's my reasoning with my pricing. But yeah, I'm a firm believer of putting the pricing out there, at least the starts at pricing. Parties, I don't do that because all my parties are customized. So so I don't have party pricing on my website. I know some chefs do, and they will basically say, you know, a 3-course meal is this, starts at this much, 4-course, 5-course, whatever. So some people do that, and that's great if you are firmer with how long it's going to take you to provide or produce a menu, you know, a 3-course menu, a 4-course menu, a 5-course. Mine, you know, I think because I customize every single menu and it changes so much, I like to look at each one and price them off that way. Hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect. Another one we have that came in was, it reads, I have a client who is checking with me weekly to see if I am cooking for them soon.
Oh.
Clearly, unfortunately, I can't tell the last, but clearly I am something. But I have a client who is checking me weekly. There we go. If I'm cooking for them soon, clearly I am following the guidelines of the governor. Any buzzwords that you would suggest for those clients?
I'm following the guidelines of the governor. Sounds pretty good to me. Are they concerned about you? Are they concerned about themselves? You know, I have my clients are all checking in with me every week, not necessarily to say, when are you coming back? Although that might be their ulterior motive, but they are checking in to say, how are you doing? I had a client today send me a text of the spring flowers in front of his house because I won't see them this spring. So, you know, I've cooked for most of my clients for an average of 10 years. So we're friends as well. But I would just keep saying I'm monitoring the situation. As soon as it is safe for me to go in the stores and to be in your home, I'll be back. I'm over 60, so I'm in the thank you, Larry. You've got all the terms, I know. In the at-risk group, so I've kind of used that a little bit, and it's true. I'm trying to stay healthy and safe. So I don't know what your exact situation is, but I would just keep saying thanks so much for checking in, and I want to get back to you as soon as I can. And then there's going to be that whole juggle of who's first when we do get back. And just say I'm following all the CDC guidelines and the advice from our governor, and I'm following the rules.
Yeah, and you know, Monica, of course, as you know, I'm I'm deep in this every day, so I usually start my day reading all of the different CDC reports. And it's interesting because last night they came out with some newer guidance, but I'm hearing some other conflicts in Washington. And unfortunately, today I was back-to-back meetings, so I haven't had a chance to really do my deep study, which I plan on doing tonight. But I would say for most members, you know, keep an eye on what we're pushing out there. And we are focused on CDC, FDA, EPA, all those guidelines. So at least we know they've been vetted. You know, I tend to hear glimmers of hope and some light at the end of the tunnel at this point, but we just don't know the when. But I think the important thing at the end of the day is our members, because we are feeding them accurate information on a regular basis as we're getting it. This is where they have an opportunity to be that, as I always like to say, the trusted advisor to their customers, their clients. Sometimes that question of, you know, when are you coming back can be as much about, you know, help me feel better, right? I'm getting all this noise from all these different sources. And so this is a great way, and you know, a time that you can build that rapport with your clients. You know, use the data that we're sharing. You know, we're going to be doing everything we can to get chefs ready to go back out in the marketplace when the time is right, but we don't want to send anybody into harm. We certainly don't want any of our chefs to get sick. We don't want anybody to turn around and you know, come back on a chef and say you brought something into the house, even if it wasn't the chef. So, but the key is, let us, you know, read what we're sending out, digest it. You know, we put guidance with everything we're sending out there, and believe me, the moment I get something, I've got it on an email, sending it out to our members. I did share the other day, and this is an interesting thing. So I make sure that I post this up in the Facebook group as well. We use MailChimp, as do many, many other organizations. I have yet to figure out MailChimp's filter system. Even the stuff I get from MailChimp as an owner gets filtered into my junk mail. So, that's why what we do is we post up on our website, or on the actually on the website, on the Facebook group, that we just send something out. And then both Vince and Angela have actual copies of the email. So people, I didn't get it and I can't find it in my junk mail, our team will send it back out, because we want to keep this information going. But I think it's a great way to use your expertise. This is what I think sometimes people forget. They think of themselves as just chefs, versus, I'm in your home. I am that person as part of the family.
Right, I agree, Larry. And a piece of it too, is reporting back to them on the grocery store status. I think a lot of us are playing that refresh game, trying to get a time slot for a delivery for food. And if your clients are going through that as well, then they'll know, that the grocery stores still aren't back 100%. So, I think that you're right. They may be looking for more information. And I think it's great. USPCA has been providing us with a lot of data, which is good, because we can then pass that on to the clients. But that's great news, because I think that shows there's going to be a huge demand for us on the other side. I think for the first week, everybody's going to want to go out to a restaurant if they all reopen at once. But I know personally my clients will welcome my food again, because they've been feeding themselves. I know I will welcome somebody else's food other than mine, because I've been feeding myself. So, look at that as a positive, that they want you back, and that your business is going to pick up as soon as it is safe for you to do that.
I will agree with you that I think people absolutely want something other than mac and cheese anymore at home. They make themselves. But I think to the point, I'm not sure how quick, and this is what everybody's struggling with right now, is how quick you're going to run out to something where there's other people versus having somebody come into their home. So that's why monitoring this is so important, because I think your messaging is clear. You obviously have to be safe. Your customers have to be safe. But, I think for our membership, this is an opportunity to be paying attention and to be ready when the time comes to be able to capture this. Because, people are, I can tell you from personal experience, I'm now on week 3 sitting in the house, and I am going stir crazy. So I get it. But again, I'm not going to rush anywhere. Like you, I'm in that age range. So I'm not one to rush out and see I stay healthy, do all the other right stuff, but I can spend the next hour or two going over all my theories in terms of where this bug goes and where it doesn't go. But I won't do that, because this is more important to talk about the members. So, hey, we did have a follow-up, and this is something you and I had talked about a little while ago. Sure. And this is coming from one of our chefs talking about the earlier discussion. Maybe we offer these clients cooking classes virtually, and the ones who ask for the chef to return. How would you address that?
Again, if your clients are really cooking for themselves, that's a great idea. And as you all have been on Facebook for a while, I'm sure you are seeing that a lot of people are offering classes. So I think you sort of take the temperature of what your audience might want to see, A, what it is you would be offering, and B, whether or not you feel comfortable charging for it. Larry and I were talking about that before we started the presentation, and be realistic. What do you think your time is worth, and what are you providing in this? Is $35 a person reasonable? Is $50 a person reasonable? Will you follow up and send them PDFs of all the recipes that you cooked? Are you going to cook it together where you're demoing and they're cooking with you, if they can get all the ingredients? I am trying that next week I have a young girl who's like 11 that I cook with. I do cooking classes in her home normally at every school break. And so we would have done one next week because she's off after Easter. And so we're going to try to do a virtual one. I've sent the recipe that we're only going to do one recipe. We usually do 3. We're going to do it via Zoom. Her mom's going to shop for the ingredients that she needs, and we're going to do it together and see how that works. I am not personally charging for this one, since it's it's a trial. But if it works out and she wants another one the next day or the next day, then maybe I will charge if it went well. So I think you need to sort of take the temperature of your audience, and then what's your goal for it? Is this to generate business after the fact? Is this to generate some income now? Is this to expand your reach and get yourself out there a little more in the world? You know, what's your goal with this? So you need to look at all of that to decide what you would offer and what you would charge.
Great. So this next question is from Mandy Trudeau. When you offer a 4x4 or 3x4 or whatever service you offer, if a client asks for you to do a flatbread or favorite dressing, like salad dressing, do you do a complimentary or do you consider it an add-on?
Salad dressing, I would do complimentary because that's, 3 minutes of time. Flatbread, I might charge for because that's it, especially if you're making the bread, the flatbread itself, versus just topping with something that you bought. Yeah, because that would take a little more time. A vinaigrette, I would make a vinaigrette probably as just a complimentary item. But yeah, if it got more complex than that, sure, I would charge it as a side dish. I tend to do my pricing a la carte. So people pay for the main dishes, and then if they want side dishes to accompany them, then I add on money for each of those side dishes, just because I don't like doing side dishes. My business.
Each their own, right? Next question is a little bit related. If they don't have much equipment, do you charge more for bringing your own?
I don't bring my own. What I do is typically when we meet, and this is interesting, Larry, because forever, from the very beginning of my business in 2004, when I would walk in and talk about what I was going to cook and how I could make their lives easier, et cetera, they would say, well, what do I need to buy before our first cook day? What equipment do I need to buy? And in those days, I would say, oh, no, don't worry, I'll bring everything. So everyone was always expecting to beef up their kitchen a little bit for me to come in and cook. So now I say, let me take a look at what you have. And if you need to buy something, I will let you know what it is. I can even send you a link to the exact item. And I've done that, especially with sheet pans. Back to the sheet pans, but I don't like wimpy sheet pans. So I will send them links to the ones I like off of Amazon, and they can order them and have them delivered to their house. They can pay for them. I'm not even in that. So that's typically how I do it. If they don't want to buy anything and you're willing to carry equipment, then yeah, maybe that service costs an extra $50 each service. It's up to you.
Perfect. Next question comes in. I have to keep asking clients if they want to book a cook day. They don't book at a regular schedule. How can I keep clients on a regular schedule without having to reach out?
Interesting. So when you first meet with them, I mean, typically it's, geez, I've not had that problem. So I'm thinking this through as we talk, because typically when I meet with someone, they're like, I need this every week, or I need this every other week. And so when I'm in that in-home interview, I'm like, okay, so I've got Wednesdays open. You'll be on Wednesdays every other week. And frankly, if you're putting people on Mondays and Tuesdays, those are the prime days, especially if you're doing fresh serve. Everybody wants Mondays or Tuesdays. So you can even charge a premium for those days. I've done that when I've had contract chefs, so that the contract chefs who work on Mondays and Tuesdays, that service costs more than if they were doing it on Thursday. So I would say that needs to maybe be addressed. Again, going forward, it's a new world when we reopen, and I think we are going to reopen gradually, as Larry said. It probably won't be a, just lifting of the veil and everybody runs out the door. But you may want to approach all your clients and say, I'm putting together the schedule going forward. I can hold, Tuesdays for you, or every third Tuesday, or every other Tuesday, or the first Tuesday of every month, whatever it is you want. I would say look at your clients, figure out what their pattern is, and then start giving them dates multiple months out, and say, this is our new pattern going forward. Because again, I think post-COVID, you're going to have more requests and you're going to get busier. So you may not have to chase them down as much. And maybe this is where you weed out the ones you don't really want and go forward with the ones who appreciate and value your service.
Perfect.
Hopefully.
This is actually a follow-up to the question about side dishes before. I said, wait, no side dishes? Do you just cook the entrees?
Yes, because most of my entrees aren't, just a seared chicken breast plain in a container. It might be miso chicken on a sweet potato topped with broccolini. So that's sort of an all-in-one. If they want an additional side dish with that, then they pay for it. But yes, mine is a la carte. So you could buy just entrees. I have 2 clients right now, and they're monthlies that only want entrees. They do their own sides.
Wow, cool. Chef Mandy was asking, what do you suggest for chefs who have only 1 or 2 regulars and not sure if they'll come back when the world is open for business again? How do you go about restarting and rebuilding?
Right. Well, frankly, I bet those people will come back, number one. And number two, I think there's going to be a lot more demand for us once things do happen, open up again. But that's where we kind of go back to make sure your foundations are in order, make sure your systems are in place, and be very consistent with your marketing, even though it sounds strange to be marketing now when you can't go out and fulfill a service, but you can still be in front of the cyber world, the social media world where everybody is living these days. So I would say, priority goes to the former clients, for prime slots, and, stay in touch with them. And when you think you're going to start up again, give them a heads up of a week or 2 and see if they want back in, and then start your marketing all over. Who is your ideal client, really? This is a time to look at that as well. Have you been cooking for, my ideal client when I started the business was anybody that would pay me. I got pickier over the years, and I figured out what my niche was. I tend to do special diets. I tend to work for older couples. I found that they were pretty consistent. I target wealthier, older couples. That's who I cook for. And I mean anywhere from, say, mid-40s to 80s. So I would say start to really focus on who your ideal client is and how you're going to get in front of them now as well as afterwards. So just keep posting those Instagram pictures of what you've made in your lockdown, which is going to be so much more fascinating than what your potential clients have been making in their lockdown.
Great. This just came in from Chef Jessica, and there's actually a question I'm going to answer, but we'll get back to that one. It said, during this time, I try to post on social media every day or every other day, whether it's food related or at my home or my volunteer cooking. I also do a MacGyver chefing, so that people who follow me, let me create a recipe for them based on what food they have on hand. How can I grab clients when this is done?
Well, I think you're doing it already. I mean, you're staying in front of them, and you need to start putting calls to action on your posts as we get closer. Do you want this in your home? Do you want me to come MacGyver your food for you every night? Do you want, on and on and on. So I think you start putting those calls to action in your marketing now, and say, I know this is all going to end, and, get in touch with me now to get on the list, and start gathering those names. And maybe you do a big push of a MailChimp or Constant Contact or whatever you use with your mailing list to everyone saying, okay, I'm back up and running. Who needs me? You know, raise your hand. So I would say start putting some calls to action on your posts for post-COVID.
I mean, it's a great time to build a list, right? I mean, you get the contact information, you know, even if it's, you know, a few weeks from now before you start up again, if your mailing list now suddenly becomes 100 people, you know, and you call a handful of clients out of 100, you accomplish something. I mean, contacts are all about capturing as much information as you can.
Right, and that goes back to the cooking. If you're doing cooking lessons online, and let's say you're doing them for free, and they're signing up via Zoom, you know, you've got to capture their info now for your list going forward. So yes, this is a time to be building your list. And the more you're engaging now, you'll get people to sign up. I mean, even with some of my clients that I'm not cooking for now, I have one who, you know, she's got 2 kids and she's struggling because she's never cooked. She's always had a minimum of 1 nanny and a housekeeper and me, and she has none of us right now. So she emails me once a week and says, I've pulled chicken breasts and a filet mignon out of the freezer. What do I do with them? And I send her back the absolute basic, simplest recipes I can think of and say, do this, this, and this with it. The kids will love it, and send it to her. So I'm staying in touch with her. She will definitely have me back. But if you're doing that kind of thing to strangers on Facebook or on Instagram, you know, find a way to capture their info so that you can stay in touch with them afterwards.
Absolutely. I'm going to grab this next one. It's actually 2 questions. I'm going to kind of read them both, but it ties into it. First one's from Chef Joni. It says, are people going to hireachef.com, and should we update our profile to something like now offering online classes? And then related to that, it says, I'm so curious if the Hire Chef platform is operational. I'm on a few other platforms. It's frustrating to me how I still get requests for parties and catering for dates within the next couple of weeks. I think those platforms are being irresponsible. What to do about those requests and stay alive in those platforms. So let me start with Hire a Chef first, because that's always the bane of my existence, because I wanted to be so much more than it currently is. But when we shifted platforms a few years ago and tied it into our database, part of my goal was to get it to a single sign-on. So members didn't have to go to 15 places and remember multiple emails. It drives me insane. And I'm kind of technically savvy, so I can imagine somebody who doesn't have the technological background trying to remember all of that. So we did a single sign-on, and then we discovered that there was a vulnerability in the system that allowed people to come in and scrape emails. And we know everybody loves to spam people. So we closed that door, and it just made it a little bit more difficult. So Rob is on a tear right now looking for a new database system to tie into Hire a Chef to make it better. But that said, it is still very much alive. And really the leads come more to those people who really have robust listings on Hire a Chef. Monday night, I was on the phone for a while with one of our newer members, and we were kind of talking about where her business was, and she was sharing with me that she gets a lot of leads from Hire a Chef, which kind of surprised me because she's a relatively new member. And I was talking to Vince after the call, and he said she's got a phenomenal listing on Hire a Chef with photos and videos. And we actually do have a field on there that allows you to promote a special. So if you're doing things like online classes, you can actually push that out there. So I can imagine as I'm saying this, Vince will be rolling his eyes and punching and sticking pins in his Larry Cupid doll. But if you need help with your Hire a Chef listing, call Vince. He can guide you through it. You know, we have it set up so it is very robust. It comes off of our old database, so it's pulling out your core data. But you can add pictures, video, specials. The more enticing it is, the better it is. But the most important thing to me was respecting the privacy of our members. And so what we didn't want to do is open it up to the world. And I think that's where you're seeing some of these things on these other platforms, is the security levels aren't there. And so people who are, and you know what, and I sent something out a week or so ago, we're seeing more online scams during the whole COVID-19 than I have seen in years. And I mean, and they're getting a little bit better. They still can't spell. They still haven't quite figured out that if you roll your cursor over the from email, where you think it's Amazon.com, and then it's from Joe Blow at blah, 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 .com, and you realize, okay, it's a scam. But if you don't do those things, you could easily fall for it and lose your data. In all the years that I've been watching these people come in and ask for, can you do this service for me? And we all know it's a scam. I have yet to figure out what they're trying to get out of it. I have mulled these over in a million and one ways. They're not asking for money. They're not asking, who knows? But the bottom line is it's open. Create a very robust listing, great photos, great material, videos if you can do them, and specials if you have them. And if you're not sure what to do with that, give Vince a call. If he's not on tonight, I will warn him that his phone's going to ring. But Vince loves to do that. I mean, that's one of the great things about Vince. He's been around this. He loves helping the members. And so that's a great way to push that forward. So definitely go that direction with it.
Larry, I know there was a question that was sent ahead of time that I haven't addressed yet, and it was Heidi. And she said she had 2 gigs, one in May and one in June, that booked many months ago. And they paid a deposit, and she's not heard from them recently and wanted to know, what's the best next step. I would say I would be proactive, reach out now and say, I would love to, imagine that these events are happening. And the June one may, the May one, I'm less, depends on where you are. And say, why don't we stay in touch and see how things pan out? And if we need to, we can move your deposit forward to another date. I would say in this case, I treated all my bookings as a weather emergency, what I normally would have in my service agreement for a weather emergency. I've held deposits. We're going to do the parties later. And we've got later is just a big question mark at this point. But I would say as a good gesture, I would reach out to them and say, as you know, I know you're aware and we don't know what's happening in May, but I just wanted to touch base with you and see what you were thinking. And are you, and will you, I don't know what you would say, specifically, but maybe let's touch base in another 3 weeks and talk about moving the deposit and the date forward, something to that effect. But I would reach out so that they know you're aware.
Yeah, that's so true, to be able to be out there in front of these. It's when we had to postpone the conference, and full well what I've gone through in conferences in the past. And we reached out to the Hyatt, and I said, we don't want to cancel. And I said, because they thought we were doing it early. And I said, look, at the end of the day, let me explain our membership to you. And I said, let's just pretend for a moment that, mid-May, late May, we're starting to get out there and do business again. Not a single one of our members is going to be in a position to drop what they're doing and go to a conference. So if you'll move it to a year from now, keep my deposit. I'm okay with that. I already, I already wrote it off last year's taxes, so I'm good. And then we can put it in 2021. And they said, absolutely. They appreciated the fact we had the dialogue. I appreciated the fact they would work with us. And so that's a big key. Consumers will remember you when you do these little things for them that make a difference. And that's huge. And just having the conversation.
Right. I would massage the words, put it in, on paper first and play around with that, exactly how you want to phrase it. And I don't know how you typically communicate with this person. If it's by email, you can play around with that. And then just, as Larry said, get out in front of it and just say, here we are in April, and I would be, we would be working on your menu for May, but, since we don't know what's happening in the world, let's just be in touch and go from there.
I'm going to share a note from Chef Mandy. You'll like hearing this. It says, thank you so much, Chef Monica. You are wonderful and very generous.
Oh, sweet.
That's very nice. And nice comment about me. And so Mandy, I'll thank you as well, because I love doing this. So, my heart is completely in this business and what we do. So it's important. So we're running low on questions, but Monica, one thing as you were talking, and I kept thinking, because it's a struggle. We're kind of in something that, for the most part, we've never really been through before. And I always laugh because I'm kind of the elder statesman among our executive committee team. I don't know. I think a lot of people know that I also have a ridiculous job at the National Restaurant Association that keeps me busy during the day. But as kind of the senior member of our executive committee, they'll sometimes ask me for a little sage wisdom, which always scares me that they're asking me that. But I was kind of reflecting on this the other day because it's important to understand that all the noise that's out there, this is what creates the panic and the scare in people. And, when I started doing the webinars for the Restaurant Association and the communications, the media, my constant refrain in starting was don't panic. And I thought back, kind of the things that I've been exposed to. When I was a really little kid, and now you're going to see how I'm going to date myself, but when I was a really little kid, I remember crawling under my desk in the 60s to avoid nuclear bombs and hearing the sirens going off and thinking, okay, I have no idea what this really means, but everybody has scared the bejeebers out of me, so I'm going to crawl under my desk. Even though reflecting on that now, I would have been toast anyway, but still, you had enough to scare you. And then you kind of go into the Vietnam era and the things, but it didn't really hit home unless you knew someone who went to war and didn't make it back. But then in the mid 70s, we had our oil embargo. And I remember this vividly because that's when I bought my first house and I got married. And my parents thought I was crazy because I bought my first house at a 9.5% interest rate until my sister bought hers at 19% interest rate. And all the panic around the economy, I remember the pundits all, you'll never see single digit mortgage rates again. You'll never see single digit mortgage rates again. And I don't know about you, but about the last 30 years, I think all I've seen are single digit mortgage rates. So, it kind of comes around. And 9/11, I happened to be right, was supposed to be in Langley, Virginia that morning for a breakfast and ended up stranded just outside the Pentagon, taking 4 days to finally be able to rent a car to get home. And that long drive home went down I-95 when it was virtually empty and no one understanding what the world meant. And a month later, I was going back up to Delaware for my high school class reunion. I won't say which one. And, the plane was virtually empty. And I literally had to drag my wife onto the plane because she did not like the idea of flying. But it's all the unknown. Mm-hmm. But I think the thing I always feel good about is we always come back somehow. And I don't remember what the book was, but I remember reading about some, it was some of the Vietnam War prisoners. And the way they got through it is they never spent their time looking at what was going to be, 6 months is going to be back or 1 month is going to be back. They focused on what they had to do day to day, the things that we're talking about tonight. It's getting out there more with your social media. It's conversing with your customers and your clients. It's all these things that you have to do today so that you're preparing when that day comes, when the daylight happens. If you were in the Hanoi Hilton, whether it was 6 months or 6 years, if you weren't dwelling on that period of time, but rather what you were doing to get by day to day, those are the guys who survived and thrived and got through it. And I think that's what we have to really kind of cling to now is the history, is that these are things we've been through before, but if we're resilient people, and we should be, we have an opportunity to come back and do this. So I just want to kind of add that. It's the thing that I share with my team at I've got a 120 person team at the Restaurant Association, and I have to keep them alive and happy every day. But I think just as important, we have 1,000 USPCA members that I want to make sure also feel the importance. And it's hard right now. It's difficult. There's no getting around that. But the light is at the end of the tunnel if you focus on all the things you need to do now to get out there. And by the way, before we forget, Jeff Edom said, Chef Monica absolutely rocks. Thank you, Monica.
Thanks, Vidam. In the first week I was home, it was I was telling you this before we went live, Larry, was that I spent a day doing a zillion things. I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And then the next day I could barely, move from kitchen to couch. And that sort of happened up and down for a few days. And I think I'm feeling this week definitely much more in a pattern of getting ducks in a row and doing business things that I've put off for many years doing. And so that's really my message is, if you need a day where all you do is eat Fritos and watch Netflix, have at it, but don't do 10 days in a row of that. Try to alternate. And truly after a week or so, I think the brain shifts and says, okay, this is my new normal for now. And so I need to put my patterns in place. And that's what I wanted to talk about, was go back to your foundations. Is everything where you want it to be in June or July or August or May, whenever life gets back to whatever our normal will be? Because you're right, it will be changed. But I think it's going to be, for the personal chef, I think it's going to be fine. I think restaurants have a whole nother story because they have bricks and mortar and they have to worry about a lot of things that we don't because we're traveling a little lighter. So yeah, let's look at your basics and make sure we're all solid there, and then you can hit the ground running. And again, it might be building your business back up, but you did it once, you can do it again. And maybe you'll build it back up really the way you want. I mean, so many of you have heard me say it so many times. The personal chef is for us as well as the client. You get to make this business what you want it to be. And if you don't want to do side dishes, you can charge extra. That can be your takeaway.
So true. Well, and the other piece of it too is we're going to be here for the members as well. We're going to source every piece of information we can to share with our members. We're going to continue with these webinars. We've got invites out for next week. So, this may eventually for us turn into an education series by the time we're done. But, for right now, it is all about what we can do for the members and how we can make sure that we all get through this together, because that's so critically important. And it reminded me, an hour goes quick when you got lots of
And thanks again. Thank you for the opportunity, Larry, and thanks for everyone listening to me. I'm not used to talking to a blank screen or seeing my face at the top. I usually play off the energy of the people I'm looking at. So thank you for your questions. That helped me tremendously. I appreciate it.
Well, and I gotta thank Chef Monica. I talked a moment ago about the conference, and I certainly hope when we get everything up and running for next year that you think about that, because Monica was going to be one of our presenters this year and was doing a special class on Thursday. But if you like what you heard tonight, realize when she's doing this live with the class over multiple hours, there's so much you can get out of it. So think about some of these things for next year, because your business can only grow. And I'm with Monica on this. I think as we come out of this, people are going to be thinking, we already saw people nesting more at home. We already saw people liking to eat at home. The Blue Aprons and others have kind of gotten in there, but they've struggled. But nothing beats having, because people hate to cook. They love to eat. Mm-hmm. They like fresh food. They just don't want to have to cook it. And so what a great position to be in. We're not going to have to worry about things like social distancing. And we know how to handle sanitation. We know how to handle personal hygiene. So we've got it over and above everybody else. It's a great time. We just have to push ourselves through this time to get there. So Monica, great friend as always. I thank you for helping us out tonight and being here as part of what we do. It really makes a difference. And I know the members really appreciate it as well. So
thank you so much. Take care, Larry.
So this will be up on tape probably tomorrow. Rob's got to do some editing to it later on tonight. We'll see it on the Facebook group. We'll push it out on our email channel. I'm sure I'll have an email out coming in the morning once I finally catch up on everything CDC. And stay tuned for next week. We'll have some announcements for Tuesdays and Thursday or Fridays. I think I moved it to Thursday because this week we've got some church stuff coming up for everybody. So Friday might have been a challenge for a few people. So we moved it to Thursday. But we'll be back next week regardless. We'll have a couple more presenters, and so watch for those announcements coming. But again, on behalf of USPCA, my thanks to everybody. And Monica, as always, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.